Welcome to The Buzz. My name is Susie Lytle. I'm an interpretive naturalist with the Forest Preserve District of Will County. On this episode, we'll be learning all about Snapper Pond. Just standing here, I've seen northern water snakes, heard green frogs, and there's turtles sunning out on our logs. Then we'll be learning about the federally endangered Hines emerald dragonfly getting released at Lockport Prairie Nature Preserve. We'll learn about kayaking throughout the preserves and then taking a moment of zen to relax. Lastly, we will visit Lake Renwick Heron Rookery. We'll get an up-close view of the nesting birds, plus a surprise visit by one bird that's really hungry. So are you ready to join us? Reconnect with nature on this episode of The Buzz. So here's Snapper Pond. This is a man-made pond that connects to Plum Creek. This pond may look a little brown to you, but it actually is a very healthy ecosystem. When we bring school groups out here to visit the pond, we do a lot of pond scooping. They catch tadpoles, water scorpions, crayfish, dragonfly larvae. All of these are great indicators of a healthy ecosystem. Frogs and tadpoles especially, because they breathe through their skin. So if there's any chemicals or pollutants in our water, they wouldn't be able to survive. So knowing that we have those tadpoles means we have a healthy habitat. Plus having different kinds of food chain levels, like our lower end with the dragonfly larva, all the way to the top predator of the great blue heron, means we have a strong ecosystem. So these great blue herons look still, like statues. They can stand like that for hours, and they carefully hunt their prey. So you'll see them flying over the pond, in the trees, and sometimes just standing super still. And when they're super still, they're eyeing different fish, different frogs to catch. They're very stealth-like, they move very slowly, and when they catch something, they strike, scooping it up and swallowing it whole. Think about those wings on the great blue heron. Their wingspan is one of the biggest birds we have in Illinois. They're called great blue heron, but what color do they look like? Sometimes they're gray, sometimes they're blue. It really just depends when the sun hits on them. When we're lucky, some years we even have black crowned night herons. Smaller than our great blue herons, but those are endangered in our state, so that's always a treat when one makes Snapper Pond their home. Alright, so we're looking at this northern water snake. These water snakes are great for the food web because they're in the water, plus they're on land. So they can be eating stuff in the pond, but then also help with our land critters like a raccoon could eat it. So all in all, everybody's happy. So where do you find these northern water snakes? Here at Snapper Pond, there's a great observation deck that you can just look below. They tend to be right in the sticks, right above the water, or you can walk along the trail. They can be right on the edge of the pond, or even hanging in shrubs and trees. These snakes like to eat frogs and fish. Definitely not humans, so don't be afraid of that. These snakes come in two sizes. So the wider, bigger ones are females, and the skinnier, slender ones are males. They're generally longer snakes, getting up to 3 to 3.5 feet long. They vary in color to grays, dark browns, and lighter tans. So a big question I get with these snakes is, are they venomous? No, these are not. Sure, they can bite if they get upset, but they have no venom. So don't be confused with masagas or copperheads. We don't even have those in our area here in Will County. Snapper Pond is famous for painted turtles and of course snapping turtles. So you'll see painted turtles a lot resting on the logs. And this is because reptiles are cold-blooded. That means that their body temperature is the same temperature as their environment. So if it's 50 degrees outside, their bodies are going to be 50 degrees as well. So they're going to be out catching those rays, warming up. Once they're warm, they can go about their day doing turtle things and looking for food. Snapping turtles, on the other hand, don't surface too often. You tend to see them as these big rocks moving slowly in the pond. The vegetation covers their shells, making the perfect disguise. In early summer, it's a good time to see turtles outside the pond because it's egg-laying season. Snapping turtles can lay 15 to 50 eggs. That's a lot of babies. And the temperature determines if it's boys or girls. It's a little bit different in every species, but for example, if it was cooler, they're going to be all females. If it's warmer, it's going to be all males. And if it's the perfect temperature, you'll have a mixture. Now, if you see these turtles crossing the road to find that perfect spot to make a nest, the best thing to do is point them in the direction that they were heading. They know where to go. If you see a turtle nest in your yard, just keep an eye out for raccoons. Raccoons love turtle eggs, so you can put fencing around it just to keep it safe. So we also saw lots of dragonflies zipping around. Just looking today, I spotted 3 different species. What a lot of people don't know is that these dragonflies start underneath the water in a little larva nymph stage. So this is a dragonfly larva, or dragonfly nymph. I like to call them dragonfly babies. They look, for a bigger picture, we can show you right here, a zoomed in picture. Now they'll stay in this form for like a few months to 4 years before turning into adults. They have little wings, you can see they're growing their wings there. They still have 6 legs, and they breathe underwater. They have gills inside their abdomen here. Now, all dragonflies, as you know, there's different ones. There's big ones, there's blue ones, green ones. All these dragonfly nymphs are a little different too. Some are green, some have yellow eyes. This one is shaped different. It's got kind of this long abdomen on its back. It's got a few different stuff on its mouth. But still dragonfly, just a different species. Once they're adults, they crawl up on a branch, mold out of their old bodies into the adults that we recognize. These adults are really only alive for a few months. Some migrate, but some just look around for food, mate, and then they die. So when you see these dragonflies as adults, it's a kind of a special treat because most of them won't be alive for long. Let's take a closer look at this bullfrog. Bullfrogs are pretty common here at Snapper Pond. You'll hear them singing, you'll see them hanging out on logs, or they're probably jumping away from you. Now bullfrogs are pretty big, so just by the size of this frog, it's about the size of my hand. That would tell you it's a bullfrog. We are also talking about the difference between bullfrogs and green frogs. You have to look at this little fold right here. This bullfrog, its fold wraps around the ear, that's called a tympanum. Green frogs have this fold all the way back to their back legs. So this we know, since it wraps around its ear just like it would wrap glasses around it, this is a bullfrog. These ears here are how they hear. It's also how you can tell a boy frog from a girl frog. The male's tympanum can be larger than the eye. This one, what would you think? I would say it's almost the same size, maybe a little larger, so this could be a boy. Girl bullfrogs, if that tympanum is the same size, is a female. So if it's larger than the eye, it's a male. Same size as the eye, female. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes. Let's see what it does. It's pretty chill. So look how friendly it is. So the bullfrogs are huge. Look at those legs. Pretty spotted. Look at these webbed feet. These webbed feet are designed to swim. So when people ask what's the difference between a frog and a toad, well, frogs have these long legs made for leaping. Toads are a little bit more squatty. Frogs also have these webbed feet for swimming. Toads don't necessarily have that. Toads are actually more warty, where frogs are more smooth. You can see he's got a yellow bottom there. Males have these little throat sacs, vocal sacs, that when they call, it really blows up into a huge bubble. Now we're going to take a quick commercial break to learn about kayaking in the preserves.
Summer is here, so go ahead and make a splash with your friends. Kayaking is a perfect activity for getting together with others while maintaining social distance. Whether you prefer the wide open water of a fishing lake, an upstream paddle in a flowing river, or the calm of the I&M Canal, We have plenty of scenic places sure to float your boat. Embrace a sense of adventure. Take your time to check out wildlife along the way. There are new surprises around every bend. The open water is calling your name. Make this year be the one you get out and explore Will County's waterways. Grab your kayak, round up a few friends, and soak up the summer fun. Map your next adventure at reconnectwithnature.org.
And now, a moment of zen. Now I feel so relaxed. Next up, we're going to be looking at the federally endangered Hines emerald dragonfly. There's only 300 in the state of Illinois, and at Lockport Prairie Nature Preserve, we're going to work on making that population just a little bit bigger. The Forest Preserve District of DuPage County works with multiple agencies to help boost the population of the federally endangered Hines emerald dragonfly.
We've been raising those larvae in captivity, so we collect the eggs, we raise the larvae in captivity, give them the best possible environment, best water, no predators, ample food. And as a culmination of that, today was time to release some of those larvae back into the wild. The goal of that is to augment the Illinois population, so increasing it beyond what it would naturally be at.
Ortega reached out weeks ago to see if we could offer up an assist with the release of 30 larvae.
Lockport Prairie is generally regarded as harboring the most abundant population of Hines in the state of Illinois. And looking around the area, I'm not terribly surprised. This is clearly indicative of what we would expect Hines habitat. So we have dolomite bedrock, we have groundwater sources, and as you go through these marshy areas, you see these narrow, low-flow streamlets going through the marsh. So this is definitely what we would consider prime Hines habitat.
After scouting a spot for the release, it was time to move into position.
The species only breeds in streamlets. So these are not still water areas, so not ponds or lakes. And they're not fast-flowing deep bodies of water, things like rivers or even streams or creeks. A streamlet or a rivulet, it's generally very narrow, maybe 1 or 2 feet wide, very shallow, about a foot deep or less, and very low flow. The other aspect they need is the water source generally needs to be a groundwater source, so not a surface water but emerging from the ground. We tend to also only find them in areas that the groundwater is covered by dolomite bedrock, so that's your bedrock. The water emerges out of that dolomite. We think the water takes on a lot of calcium from that dolomite, and somehow that influences either the dragonflies or the final thing they need in the habitat, which is the devil crayfish. And so again, all of those habitat factors, streamlet, low flow, groundwater, dolomite bedrock, but also devil crayfish burrows. Because the dragonflies, the larvae, exist exclusively in devil crayfish burrows. So the 30 larvae we released today, we call them final instars. So they have no more growing to do as larvae. The next change they're going to go through is they will crawl completely out of the water onto something like cattail. They'll crawl on top of that cattail. Their skin will harden up, dry out, and then similar to a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis, that skin will open up in the back and the newly formed adult dragonfly will emerge out. They'll stay on that vegetation for a little bit, dry out, and then fly off. I would expect between now and about 1 to 3 weeks from now, anywhere within that 3-week time period, those 30 larvae are going to start emerging out of the water.
Good luck, dragonfly babies! Now we're going to be heading to Lake Renwick Heron Rookery, where these birds are raising their own young. Welcome to Lake Renwick Heron Rookery. A rookery is a place where a colony of breeding animals makes their home. In this case, birds. The rookery is what makes this place so special. We have closed it off between March and August to protect these birds. What happens in late February, the birds come, make their nests. By April, they lay eggs. And then by mid-July, the birds start walking around. And then August, the nests are gone. So we make sure we give these birds privacy here by making sure that they're safe and no human distraction. Our goal here is to count these birds 3 times during nesting season. On average, we count 1,200 to 1,500 birds. Whoa! We also have 200 other species reported here, such as bald eagles, great horned owls, loons, pelicans, warblers, and so much more. If you look closely out there, we have 4 different species of birds. There are double-crested cormorants, great egrets, great blue herons, and black-crowned night herons. The double-crested cormorants are the blackbirds. The juveniles look a little lighter in color. We first counted them in 1988 and only counted 4 individuals. Now they make up half the population. These are diving birds, so you'll see them sitting low in the water and then plop down below. They can go 25 feet down there. They can hold their breaths for about a minute. The great egrets are the white birds with black legs. During breeding season, they tighten up their fashion, adding a neon green patch to their face and growing long plume feathers. These plume feathers were once something that caused them to almost go endangered. They were used for women's fashion. Luckily, fashion goes out of style and these birds are protected. When the breeding season first starts, you'll see these birds going back and forth with huge sticks. They're building a nest. Once the eggs are laid, both male and female take turns incubating the eggs. And then when the young are grown, it's feeding time. Both parents take turns regurgitating the meals. Yummy! Looks like there's fish on the menu today. These birds will stay in the nest until about 3 weeks and then they'll start venturing out. By 6, they'll fly away. And we have the great blue herons. These are the largest birds out there. They have a 6-foot wingspan. Their nests are 2 feet in diameter. But even though they're big birds, they only weigh about 5 to 6 pounds because of their hollow bones. And last, we have the black-crowned night heron. Can you find a bird that kind of looks like its name? Look for a bird with a black crown. It doesn't look very active right now. It's just sitting because it's nocturnal. So during the day, it sits and rests in the trees, and then come evening, it starts hunting for fish. All these birds enjoy fish, but they'll also hunt frogs, snakes, and even crayfish. Are those pirate ships out there? We get that question a lot. Rookeries usually nest in large trees, but the bigger the rookery, the more the damage. In the early 2000s, we noticed our trees were taking a hit, so we added these wooden structures to give a sturdier platform for the birds to nest on. We're lucky today to see bald eagles out here mixed in with our rookery. We have 2 adults and a few immatures. How I can tell the difference is the adults have the classic white heads, but the immature eagles are all brown. It takes about 5 years until they become that classic white and brown. We are also super lucky to catch one feasting on a meal. Whoa, how cool is that? These eagles eat a lot of fish, but sometimes they find something tasty to scavenge on the ground. Probably like this guy's doing right now. If you look closely, you can see that this eagle is pulling apart all the goos and guts. You can even tell that this might have been a cormorant that just wasn't so lucky today. Lake Renwick has a pretty interesting history. First starting out as a rock quarry until they hit a spring flooding this whole area. Then it became a recreation hotspot. In the summer they would recreate, and in the winter they would harvest ice. So if you imagine Frozen at the beginning scene where they're getting those huge blocks of ice, that's what would be happening here at Lake Renwick. So planning your adventure here, keep in mind that this area is closed off from March to August 15th. When it reopens on August 16th, please come out here, come to the observation deck, grab your binoculars, and view these birds in person. You'll never know what you'll see. Maybe you'll catch a bald eagle for yourself. Thank you for joining us today. We were at Snapper Pond, Lockport Prairie Nature Preserve, and here at Lake Renwick. Now it's your turn. Map your next adventure at reconnectwithnature.org to find all the information about our preserves, upcoming events, and programs. And we'll catch you next time on The Buzz.